With this agrarian economy, we're extending the boundaries of the game and forging some new gameplay. Eco brought in rental abilities for housing and other game items, but we're using the law system to build our own rental system to lease land for agricultural purposes. This opens gameplay not only for gatherers and farmers, but every citizen on the server. Stay tuned and see how it works. In my last video, I talked about how we distributed our currency based on seeds, but that was only the beginning. This agrarian economy we're making is being used to open new gameplay. With an increased pressure on producing crops, it may mean that more land is needed. So we introduced the concept of leasing land for agricultural use. This is how it works. The general mechanism is that the landowner, which is anyone on the server, claims an area of land that they'd like to devote to agriculture. The landowner posts a contract to plow the field, and a farmer picks up the contract to perform the service. Once plowed, the field is planted and perhaps fertilized, which I'll talk about more in a minute, and another contract is made by the landowner to harvest the crop, and a gatherer picks up that contract and performs the service. That's the big picture, but there's a lot more going on. If you've played Eco and set contracts, you might be saying at this point, where's the actual land rental happening? If the landowner is setting the contracts, how is he getting any money? The contracts pay the person to do the work. They don't bring money in. And to further turn the whole mechanism of Eco upside down, we let the gatherer keep the crop. So let's peel this onion back a little bit and look at the next layer. For a landowner to enter into a land leasing program, they contact anyone in the government and identify what plot of land they want to allocate for farming. The better prepped the land is, like making it flat, keeping the edges clear of obstacles for steam tractors, maybe even the amount of land being applied for the agricultural rent, the more attractive that land will be for the agricultural people to rent and work the land. The government overlays the land with a district designated as agricultural rent. This will facilitate the payment. When the contract is set by the landowner for plowing, the landowner pays the farmer for his services. The payment doesn't happen directly through the contract, but through a law that transfers money from the citizen who posts the contract to the farmer performing the work. In the contract completion law event, you can drill down and specify both the source and target of funds for the transfer. In this case, the landowner is the client and the farmer is the citizen performing the work. By law, only farmers can get paid for these plowing contracts. Payment is calculated on a per-claim basis. The more claims the landowner has designated under this agricultural rent district, the more the farmer gets paid. Now, stepping back a second, the only source of income generated from the whole crop growing cycle is the actual crop produced, and any random seeds that drop while harvesting. To share the wealth, the payment could have just equally distributed the revenue among the farmers, gatherers, and landowners, and in the law, it essentially does. But that could overly dilute the revenue and make the whole activity of any plowing or harvesting not very attractive. To further incentivize the activity of collaboration, a government subsidy is added to any transfer of funds that doubles the amount of money exchanging hands, which provides another nice avenue to trickle money into the economy directly through the work performed by the people. I almost like the injection tied to labor like this more than seed sales, but you still need the seed sales, particularly for new players. Now the real trick comes in with the harvesting by the gatherer. Like farmers for plowing, only gatherers get paid for harvesting. I said the gatherer keeps the crop and any seeds. This is the gatherer's predominant payment for the gatherer. But it is also where the real idea of the leasing comes in. In real life, when a landowner rents his land for use by a farmer, he gets paid a small fee for someone else being able to use his land, while the farmer generally keeps his crops and goes out to sell it at whatever the market will bear. We did the exact same thing. The gatherer actually pays the landowner for using the land and harvesting the crop. A portion of his profits for the crop goes to the landowner for the land use, and the gatherer gets to keep any additional crop for his revenue. Because the landowner has to pay to have the land plowed, a good portion of the gatherer's potential revenue actually goes to the landowner. But again, to avoid any significant dilution of profit, both the landowner and the gatherer get an additional subsidy that boosts the overall revenue for all players. There's a few other laws that play into this mechanism and help further route agricultural activity to the players that have the skills. Among some of the laws, both gatherers and farmers are de-incentivized from performing the full cycle of plowing and gathering all on their own. Farmers are prevented from trying to harvest fields with anything other than the basic scythes, shovels, or by hand. Gatherers are prevented from plowing with anything other than basic hoes. Laws like this don't completely prevent player activity, but provides options and balance. The farmer or gatherer could still work their own land, but it will take more time and burn more calories, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. If they do, then they'll need to eat more food, which helps the cooks, and in turn creates more market for their crops. To further promote the cross-skill land rental concept even among the farmers and gatherers, there is a small tax applied to a farmer when harvesting his own fields. It still makes it feasible and may tax them as much as half of the total they would make turning those harvested crops into seeds, but it's still allowed. The choice is up to the farmer. In reality, they might be better off economically setting a contract to have their field harvested by a gatherer, or at least, perhaps, just easier for them while they are off plowing other people's rented land. What's really cool for all citizens in this land rental program is that they get to dabble in a little bit of the agricultural gameplay and can create a small side business in this agrarian economy the whole server is centered around this season. Currently, there are 3 contributors to this rental cycle: the gatherer, farmer, and landowner. But we are not necessarily finished with this rental system. Right now, the gatherer is the most likely person to replant a field, given that the mechanism has them come away with slightly more profit, at least at high proficiency levels, and they get the occasional seed drops to help cover the cost of replanting. But like I said, we're not finished with this. Another optional role may be added for fertilizing and possibly for replanting, or additional subsidies provided to cover the seed costs. It's hard to say. We're still tweaking our homegrown rental system, but the foundation is set, and we can build upon it and continue to balance and adjust mechanics, prices, and all of that. You can also have a chance to experience it for yourself and play on dad speed with a free copy of Eco being offered in this video. This is week 3 of a 4-week period I'm running this giveaway, so you can watch each video I produce and provide a comment on each one for multiple chances to win. And it may not even be an Eco video. I'm also enthralled with space engineers, and DadSpeed hosts a server there as well. But right now, this season of Eco is shaping up to be something really different. Join the fun at the IP address in the description, like and subscribe, and I'll be talking to you later.